All right.
Right,
We
got
are
it.
recording.
All right, we are recording in process. Devin, what are we talking about today?
So I have a couple ideas that I'll just throw
Excellent.
out there and you can just pick your
Well,
favorite to start.
I have no ideas, so I think it's better we go with your couple ideas.
Okay, so we can talk about diet breaks, we can talk about keto. We can talk about like the concept of either changing your goal or changing what you're doing, like having to decide between those two things.
All right, well, let's start from the top. Start with the diet breaks. Let me know what you think, and then we'll just go from there.
Okay. Well, I think really the first thing is just the concept that they even exist, which a lot of people don't know. They think you go on a diet, you lose the weight, and then you either go back to what you were doing before, or you just stay on the diet until you lose the weight that you want to lose. But
Or you disappear, like literally you diet to the point where you become 0 pounds and you basically become inert.
That's a possibility
You
too.
turn into pure energy and go on to the next plane of existence. Yes, go ahead.
Right. But if you have a lot of weight to lose, or I mean, really with most people, they're going to come down. They're probably going to need a lot longer than they think, whether it's the adjusting to the behavior change or whether there's things that come up in their life that slow the diet down. Like things are going to come up where you're going to have to take breaks from your diet to stay in it for long enough to actually either lose the weight you want to lose or to be able to keep those behavior changes going. So I think just highlighting the fact that they exist is important and how they can help.
Here's the deal. Where do most people screw up with dieting? Once they actually lose the weight, they have no idea how to keep it off. So one of the things diet breaks does, and first off, it breaks your goal up into much smaller, much more manageable chunks, right? So when I wrote the book, I call it the Your 10% Solution. So people break it up, losing 10% of their weight at a time, right? It makes the goal much more manageable. You have a period to say, come up for air. First of all, with a diet break, what exactly are you breaking? Well, you're going from saying current body weight times 10 or 8, 9, whatever your multiplier is to lose weight, to put you in a calorie deficit, to say current body weight times 12 or 15, which is basically your maintenance calories, what you need to do to maintain the weight you're at. So again, what it does, it breaks your goal up so you're not dieting. Here's the deal. If I told you you couldn't have a cookie ever again, or at least for 2 years, you'd freak out. But I said, if you make it 8, 10, 12 weeks before you get to take a break from your diet, people can manage that, right? Even if it was like 4 to 6 weeks, people could manage that. They can deal with that psychologically. So it does it breaks it up. It gives your body a physical rest. And the main thing is it teaches you how to deal with success. Most people struggle with success. They lose weight, and then they don't know what to do. They're stuck in this nebulous concept of maintaining their weight. And then you just said it. You have certain skills, you have certain behaviors you have to learn. Well, guess what? The same skills and behaviors you had to learn in order to lose weight, there's certain sets of skills and behaviors involved in learning to maintain your weight for the rest of your life. Right? We have that 3% window. You don't want to let your weight, once you get to your solid weight, you don't want to go above 3% or below 3%. Once you start going below 3%, your maintenance weight, things start getting really screwy. You can't sleep at night. You have no energy. All of a sudden, you're dreaming of peanut butter cups, right? Likewise, if the weight gets too heavy, you lose most of the habits that got you to where you needed to be in the first place. So this concept of diet breaks, it's great for psychology. Yes, it's great for breaking things up, but it's great at teaching you to deal with the one thing that people seem to stink at when it comes to diets. I can't tell you the number of people I've met who have lost weight. The number of people who have kept it off is a much smaller number because they have no idea how to deal with the concept of success. They have no idea. Again, they don't have the skills of weight maintenance, even after they develop the skills of weight loss. So I can't say enough good things about diet breaks. Now, do I think it's a good idea for someone who's 40, 50, 60 pounds overweight be doing a diet break? No. Right? I don't know exactly what you're breaking from, and you very well could have loss of momentum when that happens. Likewise, diet breaks don't always have to be like, say, once every 6 to 8 weeks. They can be one day out of a week. Again, that can backfire. If you have someone who doesn't have an on-off switch, they can really get themselves in trouble. If I get someone in a calorie deficit for 5 days and all of a sudden I give them a cheat day, right? There goes the ability to desensitize their body to things like salt, sugar, and fat. So diet breaks are not just necessarily once every 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks. Sometimes they can be 1 or 2 days a week. Sometimes it's not even go hell-bent and go crazy 1 day a week. Sometimes it's just a matter of eating maintenance calories. It could be something as simple as adding an extra protein bar or, an extra sandwich into your diet 1 day a week. So it is a much more global concept than maybe I made it out to be, but it is very, very important. And I think you hit on the main thing. People fold under diets because they think it's something that they have to do every minute of every day for the rest of their life. What I'm realizing is once you get to that target weight, there is some room to come up for air. There is some room for error, right? If you want to go do a Thanksgiving dinner or go have a great birthday or something like that, there is a weight range. Lyle McDonald says this, maintenance is a range. It's not a specific number, right? And that's where that 3% comes in and out. So yeah, I love that's a great thing. People need to know that because I don't think enough people do know that. Yeah.
I think we pretty much said everything we needed to say about would you add anything else?
I would, but I'd start ranting and raving about topics totally unrelated, like the Eagles' awesome win today, like Peter Krogan telling me the Eagles were going to destroy the Titans, and me being the neurotic, crazy Eagles fan, no, they're going to lose. So it would devolve into something completely unrelated. So let's just move on to the next topic.
All right. So
Peter was right and I was wrong.
So the next topic with keto, one of my clients was asking me, her daughter is doing keto and she lost weight for a while, but now she hit a plateau. She's not losing weight anymore. So I think some important things that some people don't know when they're doing keto is that you can be eating very high fat and low carb, but still not be in a calorie deficit, which that's what's going to be needed to lose the weight. And then having it being very high fat, the high fat foods are very calorie dense. And then something we've talked about a lot of times before with the, just the concept of people being really bad at estimating how much they're eating. So throw on top of that calorie dense foods, and it's very easy, like a handful of nuts, some olive oil on your dinner, and you can easily erase a calorie deficit with that. I would say those are the big things I wanted to say.
Okay. Well, look, there was some research that recently came out that showed that people who include almonds in their diet lose more weight. And I'm like, okay, great. So you have something with a little bit of fat, a little bit of fiber, a little bit of protein in it. Of course, it's going to keep you full. That's fantastic. Here's what they miss. Nuts are awesome until you go nuts and start eating them, right? Nuts are great until you become nuts. And then all of a sudden you start overeating them. It's like anything. I agree with you. People think there are, and this isn't people's fault. I am absolving people. I'm absolving you with my pen. You've been absolved. This is not your fault. This is the keto nuts who carry on. There was actually a book written on, I bought this book on Amazon.com. It smelled old. The book smelled like mold. Like I swear to God, I think they would shut my house down if they came in here and found it. It was so old and moldy. And it was a book. It said calories don't matter. Or you don't. I can't remember. It was I think it was a book called Calories Don't Matter. And the author's actual insane premise was, as long as you're eating low carb, high fat, you never have to count calories because there's no possible way you could be in a calorie surplus. That's nuts. And people believe that and they buy it. Why? What happens? If you overeat carbohydrates and all of a sudden you stop eating carbohydrates, guess what happens? You're in a calorie deficit. If you don't eat enough essential fats and you start getting essential fats, guess what happens? Your body starts functioning better. If you start, now true keto diets are not high in protein. They're actually very low in protein and super high in fat. But a lot of them, the iterations of keto also involve higher protein. What's that do? Keeps you more satiated, helps you maintain muscle during weight loss. So it's always this Wizard of Oz. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain, right? Remember that movie Wizard of Oz where the guy's cranking on everything? Don't pay attention to the guy behind the curtain, because you know what the guy behind the curtain is, you keto jackasses? The guy behind the curtain is a calorie deficit. And the only thing your diet is doing by increasing fat, decreasing the major source where most people get their calories, it's really sugar and fat, right? That's all it's doing. It's not doing anything magical. I'll tell you one magical thing it does do. Because you lose carbohydrates, you tend to drop a lot of water. People don't realize, but carbohydrates tend to pull a lot of water into the body, into the muscle cell. So what happens in keto is people get this massive drop in weight when really a lot of it's water weight, which we may as trainers say, oh, that's so stupid. But to the average person, sees a 7-pound drop in the first week, that can greatly help compliance, right? I think Lane Norton's the guy. I can't believe I'm mentioning Lane Norton and Ron McDonald in the same video. I'm surprised the video doesn't blow up. But the reality is they agree on a lot more stuff than they disagree.
Yeah.
And the thing is that Lane Norton always say compliance is the science. That when you look at all these diets through all this research, the one thing we find is the diets that people can stick with are the diets that work because they keeps them in a calorie deficit. And that's all keto diets do. Now, look, I understand there's applications for certain types of cancer therapy. Let me be very clear about this. Keto diets are not the preferential diet for all forms of cancer, right? There are some forms of cancer where going on a ketogenic diet can help. That's why you have medical doctors to talk to them about that stuff. But outside of that, from a weight loss mechanism, that's exactly what this woman's probably finding is once she got rid of that initial water weight gain, once she got rid of the benefits of water weight loss, the initial benefits of actually complying to her diet for more than a week, what happens is it's going to plateau. It's that asymptote, right? You lose all that weight in the beginning. And then as you get leaner and leaner and leaner, the body starts to fight back. The body does not believe in skinny jeans. Why? Because nature is the body's skinny jeans, right? Nature used to take care of that for you. There simply wasn't enough food available relative to the amount of energy it took to get that food. That was the original low carb diet, right? That was the original anything diet. That was Weight Watchers 25,000 years ago, right? So that's what's going on with that. And you know, okay, I'm happy for her. Great. Now here's the thing. If you wanted to do keto to lose weight, it doesn't have to be the diet you stay on. There's another Lyle McDonald quote. The diet that helped you lose weight is not the diet you have to stay on for the rest of your life. Keto may be the very thing you need to do to desensitize yourself to the taste of sugar and desensitize yourself to the taste of carbohydrates and desensitize yourself to the actual thing that makes you gain weight. All right. I got Lane Norton just did this video on the guru guy, what's his name? Jordan Peterson, right? The big thing that doesn't cause people to gain weight is not carbohydrates. It's usually a combination of carbohydrates and fat. Snickers bars, pizza, donuts. They are not sticks of butter. They are not bags of sugar. They are a combination of those two things coming together. So that's typically what causes people to gain weight, right? Or those carb fat bombs. So now all of a sudden you've taken off one of those two equations. It desensitizes people to that source of hyper palatable calories, which is what they tend to overeat. And in the end, after all the ranting and raving and screaming and yelling, and people are saying, Shank, shut up and let Devin speak, it all comes down to a calorie deficit.
Right.
That's what it does. So what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, that's basically the point I was trying to make as well with that. Like you can be eating all your keto foods, but if you're not in a calorie deficit, you're not going to lose weight. And that's really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the paleo people, right? Like they only eat natural foods unless it's like I saw the other day, there was a paleo candy bar, right? Now, if people don't know, paleo is this diet that's based allegedly on whole foods, only thing that Paleolithic man and woman used to eat, except when it's a paleo candy bar. Then all of a sudden it's okay, right? So it's just, it's all of this stuff, the value in all of these diets. Let me turn on the John Burns lamp. All this stuff, the value is it tricks you into a calorie deficit. Look, I love tricking people. If that's what works, if that's what gets you motivated and gets you going, and you're in the actual calorie deficit, awesome. Just please understand that if you're on the outside in, look and say, well, which one of these diets is the right one for me? The one that you're going to believe in enough to actually follow through on. Vegans and vegetarians literally believe not only are they saving animals, and that makes them a better person, they're saving the planet. That's what keeps them in a calorie deficit. Not because vegans can't eat olive oil, potato chips, pasta with marinara sauce, and get massively overweight. Not that they can't eat fake buffalo wings and get massively unhealthy and overweight, right? It's because there's a belief system, right? Like paleo, you literally believe you're better than other people because you're eating like a cave person. And we just recently saw how that worked out with that Liver King liar, right? Mr. Trenbolone from 10,000 BC. People don't know there was this guy named the Liver King who bragged that he lived primal living lifestyle. And they just found that he was taking like $17,000 a month in steroids, right? I mean, give me a break, in growth hormone. So it's, that's all it is. That's the most important thing to understand.
Yeah. All right. Next topic.
Please. Yeah, I would keep going off on that one too. Go ahead.
So like getting down to the point where you either have to decide if you're either have to change what you're doing or you have to change your goal. Like people that hit a plateau and they're not like they're not losing the weight they want to lose, or not seeing the changes they want to see. It's going to come down to a decision and having to, like, have you ever had that with a client?
I don't necessarily understand. Can you unpack that a little bit more as the academics would say, so I can kind of understand where you're going with that?
Like, so let's say someone sets a weight loss goal and week after week, nothing changes. Like you either have to change your process. So whether that comes down to like being better at planning your food, making sure you're adhering to your diet better, are you being consistent with your walking or cardio, with your weightlifting? So either getting more meticulous or consistent about your process, or deciding, hey, look, it's just not a good time for me to lose weight right now. I need to change my goal. Maybe my goal is to just maintain and just keep some basic habits going.
Okay. How do I say this without sounding psychotic? All right, I'll say it anyway, and then you can clean it up and make it make sense to the normal people. You can't juggle poop without getting your hands dirty. And when you start getting into that realm of all these different, look, I agree with you. Once you start looking at your diet and say, all right, am I being compliant? Am I following through? Once all that stuff gets answered, right? So we all know the person who's in the 500 calorie a day deficit for 10 days and then breaks and eats 6,000 calories in one day. And all of a sudden now they're in 1,000 calorie surplus, right? So these things happen on diets. I think the thing is, once you start getting into that realm of changing this, changing that, changing this, changing that, mm-hmm. you're playing a game that you really can't win. The way you lose weight in the first place is by developing habits and lifestyle behaviors. And you stick with those regardless of what the scale is saying. Because eventually now look, I get it. You're like, oh, but Shake, what if you're doing isn't working? That's the part you just said. You analyze what you're doing and see if you're doing everything right. If you're doing all the things right that you're supposed to be doing, again, as you lose weight, the body will start to fight back. Weight will be harder and harder to get off. You'll have to do a lot. That's why I always say, once you get past that first 10% of weight loss, where most of the health benefits occur, you've got to seriously reconsider what exactly it is you're doing, because things are going to start getting a little sticky, right? You're not going to be able to sleep eventually. You're going to be thinking of food all the time. I had a client the other day who told me somehow he wound up in the bakery section of the grocery store because he wanted to go say hello to the cheesecakes. He never does this. He's like, I don't know what happened. I'm like, dude, you've lost so much weight. Your body is freaking out, right? You didn't just wind up in the bakery section, right? It's like some inner demon inside your body is saying, go eat baked goods, right? That's why in the Bible, they talk about all the time when the Jews were in the desert, they say they were craving milk and honey and not skim milk, right? Milk and honey, why they wanted fat and sugar. They didn't say they were craving broccoli, right? They didn't say, oh, Moses, take us back to Egypt so we can eat Swiss chard, right? They wanted milk and honey. This is what happens, guys. When you lose enough weight, when your diet is actually successful, the body starts to fight back. So when you start getting in this realm of this and that, what about this and that, eventually it's not going to work out. You have habits. You have habits that have got you there. They're going to get you further. You got to just stick with them and understand that progress slows down. Look, when I was a kid, I remember my bench press went from like 95 to 185 pounds like in under a year. And I swore I was going to bench like 400 by the time I got out of high school. Never happened, ever. Not even at 32, it never happened. Why? Because that rate of progression, it occurs. And then as you get closer and closer to your potential, it starts to really begin to level out. It's not that you not keep improving, but it's such a slow progressive rate. People are blessed with different abilities. I've said this analogy before. I'll say it again. Ed Cohen, greatest powerlifter ever lived. First time he walked in the gym at 130 pounds, he deadlifted a 400-pound barbell. When he was done lifting, he deadlifted a 900-pound barbell at 220 pounds. he gained the same amount of weight that I did, right, in weightlifting, but because his deadlift started out 200-300 pounds heavier, his rate of progress was the same, but he just ended up at a higher number because of his genetic gifts, right? It's the same thing with weight loss. You're going to lose a certain amount of weight, and then the body is going to start to fight back. For some people, that might be 10% weight. For some people, it might be 20%. For some people, it might be 30%. Some people, I've had two people, two identical males, same weight, same age. One guy dropped 10% of his body weight, and he couldn't wait to drop the next 10%. I met the other guy, dropped 10% of his body weight, and he was like literally chewing on his own fingers. He was so hungry all day long, right? He was walking around the bakery section saying hello to the donuts. Right. So that's the one thing I have caution with that, is that once you go through all the practical matters of, am I doing the things right? Where am I screwing up or not screwing up? Ultimately, it's going to come down to this is why these diet breaks are so important, because weight loss will level off. And the most important thing is just to stick to your habits. That's it. The second you start screwing with those habits is when problems start. And then all of a sudden you start adding more exercise. You start adding more weight. You start trying to cut more calories. And you're literally pouring fire. You're adding fuel to the very machine that got you in this desperate spot in the first place. Your body's already saying, you've given me too much. I can barely handle it. And now your answer to that is to rev the engine up even more, drive it into more of a deficit, to drive it into more exhaustion. Versus what we know is that here's an interesting thing. The leaner you get, the less strictly you need to diet. What I mean by is, the leaner you get, the less days you actually spend per week at weight loss calories. Right? When you get lean enough, you probably should have at least 1, maybe 2 days a week at maintenance calories. Just to give your body a little bit of a break, to give your psychology a little bit of a break, right? But most people do these at the opposite. They up the cardio, they up the calorie deficit, and it winds up blowing up on them eventually. They don't play the long game. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Yes. Okay. What other topic do we have? I like your Christmas tree.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
$25 at Michael's.
Let me tell you something. It was probably the best $25 I've seen spent in a long time.
Yeah. All I had to do was put it together and plug it in. Like all the lights.
Oh, the lights were already on it?
Yeah.
Wow, that's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the electric menorahs are like that. So what am I saying? It's still kind of cool. All right. So what else do we got to cover here?
Well, we could completely change from the whole diet thing and talk about the concept of, like with exercise, the importance of the lats, abs, and glutes, and how they're really fundamental in all the big movements. Like you always talk about one exercise for the front of the thigh, one exercise for the back of the thigh. And
I'll keep going. I like that. It's like haiku to me. One exercise for chest, one exercise for back, one exercise for shoulders, one exercise for biceps, one exercise for triceps. Perform 6 to 9 sets, done every 7 days, spread out evenly over the 7 days. Perform. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
But just the concept of the lats, abs, and glutes, or if you want to put it as like your shoulder, spine, hips, and feet, and how that's fundamental in carrying over into making sure you're able to work those muscle groups properly.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to start?
No, I want to figure out, you just spilled a whole bunch of truth. I want to know what direction you want to take that in. Like everything you said is true, but I'm trying to think out what direction you want to take that in. Is that you saying that people's routines sometimes, shy away from that? Do you saying that sometimes people don't follow through on that enough consistently, looking for whatever the next, Scott Abel would say, they pinball to the next great workout and diet routine, whatever it is?
Yeah, pretty much. Or just like picking random, like, oh, I want to work my abs and arms today. But like, if you can work muscle groups that are working on stabilizing your shoulders, like pushing and pulling motions, working on stabilizing your spine. So which might be compound movements, might be ab isolation work, or a combination of both. And then working the glutes, which that's really going to be the foundation for strengthening your legs. Mm-hmm. Those are all
okay. I get where you go. Okay, here's the deal. Every industry has its lingo. And I'm not saying that you need, in order to lose weight, to build muscle and to improve function. What are my big 3 things, right? Be harder to kill, be physically independent for as long as possible, and build a little muscle. Right? You said that, I thought that was brilliant. I even wrote that in the book, doing the content edit on it. And I wrote that, regardless of whatever your goal is, you still have to build muscle. You want to lose weight, guess what? You still got to build or maintain muscle. You want to improve sport performance, guess what? You still got to build or maintain muscle. I think that the thing is that right now I'm visualizing this person in my head. And I knew this person used to come to the gym for years and nothing positive ever happened with their body. And when I asked them what they were doing with their routine, they're like, well, I do the machine that does this, and I do the machine that does that, and I do this machine, and I do this, and I do some of these, and I do some of these. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, here's the deal. I don't need you to go on a rant about the pec fiber divisions. I don't need you to go on a rant about the 3 heads of the tricep. And about how when you do push downs in this grip, it works the medial head. And when you do push downs in this grip, it works the lateral head. And you have to put the triceps on stretch in order to work. You don't need to know that for general fitness to maintain muscle during weight loss. But here's what you have to do. You have to know what a tricep is. You have to know what exercises work it. And you have to know how to do an exercise in a way that maximizes the use of that muscle, right? What I will tell people is you cannot make even moderate use of a technology if you don't have a basic understanding of that technology. And it kills me because I can't tell you how many times people get this within their own profession, but can't translate it out of their profession, right? So they think for somehow exercise is this thing that doesn't apply to doesn't have the same rules that apply to everything else they're doing, right? So it's you don't have to be a financial expert, but you do have to understand that you have to spend less money than you make in order did I say that right? Spend less money than you make in order to have to not be broke. All right. Exercise is the same way. You have to know what that's why I try to make it so simple. You have to know what the major muscle groups are. You have to know what exercise work, which major muscle groups, and how to do those exercises correctly. And then progress them with load over time. I think that's it, right? You don't have to be as much of an expert at a topic as the expert is, but there does have to be some basic grasp of what's going on. And if you want to guarantee failure, and I'm just talking about exercises, I'm not Tony Robbins, I'm not a life guru here. If you want to guarantee failure in exercise, go to the gym and just do this, this, and that. And I will promise you, it will not work out for you. That's all. I mean, look, and that's why I made it simple. One exercise for back, one exercise for chest, one exercise for shoulders, one for bi, one for tri, front of the thigh, back of the thigh. If you can do that consistently over time for 6 to 9 sets spread out over 7 days, excuse me. And when the weight gets too easy, here's something interesting. Someone had said to me, a strength guy had said to me the other day, and I thought it was awesome. He said, you don't add weight and get stronger. You get stronger and add weight. And I think that's a very important, that's not semantics, because if you just throw heavy weights at a muscle, it'd be like taking your kid and throwing him in the deep end of the pool and saying, learn how to swim, right? At some point, for a majority of people, that's not going to work out. That's what muscles are like. You start off with a moderate to lightweight, you stimulate the muscle for a certain amount of sets, 6 to 9, done every 7 days, for a certain amount of reps, anywhere as low as 6, anywhere as high as 15. Right? For a certain amount of sets, 1 to 3, because you have to get that 6 to 9 in done every week. And then as the muscles get stronger, you lift a heavier weight, right? You go to 7.5, you go to 10, you go to 12.5. It doesn't have to be every workout. It doesn't have to be every other workout. Although beginners, you will see that kind of rate of progression. Then they get to be intermediate and things start to slow down a little bit. Actually, a lot of it. That's really what it comes down to. Is just that basic understanding of that routine consistent over time. If your goal is just to build general fitness, you do not need to power lift, Olympic lift, strongman, jump up and down on a Bosu ball with one dumbbell in one hand and the medicine ball in the other. That stuff is just not necessary. If that's what you want to do, be my guest. But for the general fitness person, learning the basics, most basic parts of this technology will get you as far as you ever need to go.
Right.
Oh, God damn it. This thing's doing this now, this time left thing. This is worse than the World Cup. I can't stand it. They said the game the other day ended and it just kept going.
Mhm.
And I swear the referees must have money on the game, because for some reason there seems to be no arbitrary rule as to how long the game is going to go once the time ends. So right now we're at 9 minutes in 30 seconds. Devin, what do you guys say?
No, what your whole explanation was a much more practical thing to talk about than what I initially had brought up. So
Okay.
how you turned it and made it make sense.
So what do you want to build off of that? What in that making sense do you think like you could give to a client or a friend or a loved one tomorrow to help them achieve their fitness goals?
Well, I mean, following a structured program just like that, exactly how you listed out, like one exercise for each of these muscle groups, 7 to 9 sets a week. Did you say?
It's 6 to 9, but I might as well get a tattoo. That's fine. 7 to 9 is just as fine. Like 4 to 9, 3 to 9, 6. What was that song? 8, 6, 7, 5, 3, 0, 9. Yeah, if you want to get Jenny fit, I guess that's how you'd have to do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, but having that, like, get a notebook or put it in your notepad in your phone, or I use Google Sheets in my phone for my work.
Right.
Write it down. When you go to the gym, you pick one variation that feels good for your body of each of those exercises, and you do that, and then the next week you do that same variation again, and like, let's say dumbbell chest press for your chest movement, and you write down the weight you used and sets and reps, same thing, and then you repeat it again. So like that repetition, like having to go back week after week after week and doing the same movement and seeing those numbers go up, that's really what needs to happen if you want to make your workouts productive.
This just brought back a memory to me. Years, literally 2 decades ago, I was training a guy, and he was a finance guy. And I remember I had the notebook, and this is before like iPads and smartphones. There was that stupid blue Nokia phone that you could like use as like a bludgeon to take somebody out. And I remember I was trying to get him to have the notebook and record the weights. He said, "That's stupid. I'm not going to record the weights." And I'm like, dude, you're a financial counselor. Do you tell people to keep a checkbook? Like, he's like, yeah, well, that'd be stupid. How would they know how much money they're spending if they don't keep it? I'm like, okay. So you keep a checkbook to keep your finances balanced, keep an idea of what's going on with that. What makes you think you just come in the gym and just randomly float amongst the equipment and your body is just going? I mean, it's what I'm saying. That's what drives me nuts, is that like he understood fully well the technology that works for his finances without understanding that there were certain basic principles that applied to both fields. Now, at that point, he started keeping notebooks because I guilted him into it and I mocked him. That works with some people. Other people just beat you with the notebook. But yeah, I mean, that's the long and the short of it. Like I said, you don't need to start writing, Melville's, Moby Dick, but my God, you have to keep some type of consistent record. I've tried that before. I've tried many iterations of that in my career. Instinctive training, let's just see what the client wants to do today, and over time, by serendipity, we'll move the weight up. It doesn't work, guys. Unless you're a rank beginner who's not doing anything to where any level of stimulation will work, there needs to be at some point some form of record that you're recording in order to measure and progress and build off of. Like I said, I've tried all this stuff. I've had clients, it's the same with the diet, to kind of wrap this thing up. I've had clients do every possible diet you could imagine. Some have lost weight on the very same diet some people have gained weight on. And the only difference was the diet suited that person more, and therefore they were more compliant with it. Like, that's it, right? And it's the same thing with weight training. When I say one exercise for front of the thigh, one exercise for back of the thigh, and someone comes and says to me, what about leg presses? My answer is always yes, right? But it's yes on the context, right? Are you a long-legged person to where a barbell squat is a low back exercise? I don't care how many times the power lifter jerk screams in your face that squats are the most superior, most efficient, best exercise you can do. If you're trying to develop your legs and you have really, really long legs and a really, really short torso, squats are a low back exercise for you. That's it, right? So leg press is a great option for you. If you don't fit into skinny jeans because you got short squat thighs and long shins and a giant butt, then leg presses are going to be pretty much a waste of your time now see, I'm getting all crazy. I'm getting tired. Leg presses are not a waste of your time, but squats would be a very viable option for you to build up your legs. Right. But again, people have a certain technology they understand that works for them. And therefore they make up all types of defenses to build that up to convince you that you should be like them. That's why, look, if I could say do X exercise and it will work for everyone, I would do it. I've been doing this. That's how I pay for my groceries. Right. Like, I know the Flyers suck this year, but that's how I bought this hat off of personal training money. Right. So if there was a way that I could have more Flyers hats, if I could buy the Flyers buy the Flyers and fix them, right, I would do it. But it doesn't exist. What there is there's front of the thigh. And there's a bunch of exercises and a bunch of different body types that fit into certain exercises better than others. The hard part is figuring out what are the best exercises. I had a guy the other day and I was thinking about this. Should I teach him the barbell squat? And I realized he's only with me 1 day a week. So if I teach him a bunch of machines and basic movements, even like a goblet squat, his ability to execute that correctly on his own, where he's spending a majority of his weightlifting time, a majority of his 9 sets a week are spent on his own. So I need him to be able to do exercises he can do on his own effectively, right? That made the exercise better, not even related to his body type. It was what was practical for this guy to follow through on, right? So that's why I use that broad category. I'm not purposely trying to be vague. I just understand that, look, I had a client once who was a small woman. And you know why we didn't choose certain exercises? Because she felt like she was going to get crushed by them. Now you say, well, what's the thing? You go be a small woman, right? I've never been a small woman my entire life, right? But I can appreciate that if I was a small woman or a small person, period, I might be a little nervous about being crushed under a barbell, right? My psychology has always been, I'm going to take my giant head and I'm going to crush the barbell, right? So it's certain exercises fit different people's psychology is what I'm trying to say. And that's what goes into more success long-term as this is anything else. If there was a special exercise or a special food, not only would we have discovered it, the whole world, I would be exploiting that like crazy. If it really was simple as turning all my clients into powerlifters or Olympic weightlifters or CrossFitters or boot campers, right? I would have done that a long time ago. I'm not a glutton for punishment here. My life goal is to build an animal shelter with central air conditioning. You mean I'm letting dogs sit in an animal shelter that I consider not adequate enough because I won't embrace this magical exercise, even though it's the best, I won't buy into it because it doesn't exist, guys. Just like the perfect diet doesn't exist. All of these, every exercise, every diet you follow goes one of two roads. It either gets you into progressive resistance over time or a calorie deficit over time. And whether the diet is good or not is whether it helps you stay on both those paths. If it helps you stay on those paths, then it's a good option for you. And people will say, look, I'm on a rant. We got a minute left. There's a reason why I got into Judaism. It's because I like to argue. All right. I like to argue. There are some modes of religion where that doesn't work very well. All right. There's no word in Hebrew for obey. Do you know that? There's no word. It just doesn't. I think it's obey. I think that's the word it is. It's like, yeah, it's like basically obey and shut. That word doesn't exist. Right. So this works for me. That doesn't mean I go on a crusade, a jihad to try to get everyone to eat challah. Right. Because I know it doesn't work for everyone else. So, but that's unfortunately what we have in the exercise world. We got a bunch of people shoving challah down other people's throats. And like, well, I don't like egg bread. I like, I don't know. Now I'm starting to lose it. But the bottom line is calorie deficit, progression over time. That's all the effective diets and exercise routines do for the individual. It helps them get those two areas under wrap, and everything else is just, window dressing to support it.
Yeah.
Why don't you take the last minute, please? Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I think you summed it up perfectly with a diet for weight loss. It puts you in a calorie deficit, and it's one that you can stick to, or it's one that you can be compliant with. And the same thing with resistance training. It's finding exercises that work well for your body and that you can progress with load over time. And that's really what it's going to come down to.
Let's walk away, because right now they're going to do that less than a minute crap on us, and we're going to shut them down.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Devin.